Welcome to Spacecraft Guide, the channel that describes how the most complex and historic spacecraft work. In this episode of Spacecraft Guide, we are going to work more on the lunar lander, as we have working on the environmental control system and the glycol selector switch. Now, when you click on this switch, it takes you to the glycol selector switch page. Now, what the glycol selector switch does, it selects either circulating pump in the primary coolant loop or the circulating pump in the secondary cooling loop. If there's a failure, the caution light in the ECS goes on. So you see pump 1, that turns on pump number 1, pump 2 turns on pump number 2, and then instrument secondary activates the glycol instrumentation. We notice now when we look at the schematics of how this works, and you can see that there is a lot of fluid circling around, and you notice where this fluid is going to. It's the instrumentation. And you're wondering, why do you have to put so much fluid through the instrumentation? These instruments, they're electronic. They heat up the spacecraft a great deal. So they needed a way to dissipate that heat. And if you notice the instrumentation here, the heat is coming out. There's also the secondary cooling assembly. And it's a small but important part. So not only did it cool the instruments, but it also cooled the suit. And there's another story behind why they wanted to cool the suit. Last episode, we discussed how Gene Cernan in his spacewalk, how he, on his hour-and-a-half spacewalk, exhausted himself in outer space. And one of the issues that they had is they didn't have a way to cool the suit. So he put up a lot of condensation because he was struggling so hard to do his spacewalk on Gemini. But that had another effect on not only for the helmet and not being able to see outside, but the perspiration inside the suit. It turns out that Gene Cernan had worked so hard in his suit in the spacewalk that he perspired enough that he filled up both boots with sweat. They figure it was around a gallon of sweat. And when they touched down, all that sweat went to his feet. And that's why he thought that they had breached the capsule and seawater was coming in. So that is why the cooling loop was so important to the astronauts. That's all for this week. If you would like to use this interactive virtual reality exhibit on the command module, the lunar module, and the surface of the moon, just go to our Patreon page and the link will be down below.